Good morning. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about pruning Kordes roses and how tall they actually grow compared to the listed heights on their breeder's website. All the roses I'm going to talk about are 3 years old. I'm not going to discuss any younger roses in my garden. I noticed that my Kordeses tend to grow taller than the sizes listed on the website, which I don't like as I can't see the blooms. So this year I pruned them quite low and I pruned them twice, first time in February and then after the first flush. Instead of just deadheading my roses after the first flush, I was cutting the stems quite low. I'm going to talk about each rose separately, but before I do, it is important to say that the height of a rose given by a breeder is rarely 100% correct because it is only an estimate based on the climate where the rose was originally bred. A rose's height depends on environmental and care factors. Roses bred in colder climates often grow much taller and wider than the breeder's stock says when planted in warmer climates with longer growing seasons. Conversely, severe winter climates can stunt a rose's growth. Good soil will cause a rose to quickly overshoot its listed height. I will also add here that this year my Kordes roses were only fertilized once in February. Today I am going to show you 5 Kordes roses in my garden. I will start with the rose you're looking at right now, which is Delightful Perfuma or Frau Caroline. This is a very beautiful floriferous plant with big sprays of flowers on each stem, but keep in mind it is highly sensitive to rain and sun. It says on the website that this rose's height is 70 centimeters and width is 50 centimeters. In my garden, zone 8B, this rose can reach 140 centimeters in height and takes about 70 centimeters of my border. In February, I pruned this rose to about 25 centimeters, and for its first flush, it reached about 120 centimeters in height. After its first flush, I pruned the stems at the front to about 35 centimeters, and the stems at the back I was just cutting in half, so to about 70 centimeters, to create this cascade of flowers from top to bottom. If you prune all the stems at the same height, this rose tends to have flowers only at the top and at the same height. The second flush for this rose was absolutely beautiful and with many flowers. Here you can see where I pruned the stem after its first flush. So that's the stem at the front, so to about 35 centimeters. And here you can see the stems at the back, so this is where I was pruning them to about 70 centimeters. In conclusion, I will say in my zone, this rose will want to grow taller than 70 centimeters listed on the website, but with this rose, personally, I don't mind it reaching 140 or slightly even more, as it still looks really good. Next rose is Gross Herzogin Louise or Spicy Perfuma. It is the most fragrant of my Kordes roses. It is a hybrid tea that, according to the breeder, reaches 100 centimeters in height and 50 centimeters in width. In February, I have pruned this rose to about 20 centimeters and it grew to about 140 centimeters. And later in the year, once I pruned this rose to about 35 centimeters, it reached 120 in its second flush. When it comes to its width, it is a rose that grows quite thin, and when it says on the website 50 centimeters, I would say it's about right. It's just the height that might be slightly bigger than the 100 centimeters listed on the website. Next up, we have got Märchenzauber or Bliss, here at the beginning of its second flush. Kordes says it grows 100 centimeters tall and 60 centimeters wide. When it comes to its width, this rose takes about 80 centimeters in my border. In February, I cut the stems to 10-20 centimeters, and this rose grew to about 140 centimeters. After the first flush, I pruned it to less than 40 centimeters, and the tallest stem is now 115. Here we have Lion's Rose, also known as Champagne Moment. Just like Bliss, it is a floribunda. The estimated measurements we have from Kordes are 80 centimeters for height and 50 centimeters for its width. In spring, I cut this rose down to 20 centimeters, and the tallest stem was about 120. After first flush, I cut it to 40 centimeters, and the tallest stem is now 100. This rose does take 50 centimeters of my border, as advised by the breeder. The next rose, Madame Anisette, is actually quite interesting. Just like Spicy Perfuma, it is a tea hybrid rose, but it is supposed to be a bit taller because Kordes says 120 centimeters. And according to its breeder, this rose shouldn't take more than 50 centimeters of your border, which is about right as this rose grows quite thin. Last year, I made the mistake of not pruning this rose quite low in spring, and later in the season, I was only deadheading it. As a result, I had 2-meter stems towards the end of the season, which I showed you in the last video of the last year. That's why this year I pruned it to 20 centimeters in spring, and then it grew to about 130 centimeters in height. After the first flush, as an experiment, I cut some stems, and some stems I only deadheaded. The ones I only deadheaded are reaching 2 meters again. The stems I cut to 40 centimeters have got some new growth reaching 110 centimeters. It looks to me like cutting the stems quite low to 40 centimeters from Kordes roses is a must, otherwise I struggle to control its growth. However, there are some stems I cut quite low after first flush, and still I don't see any signs of new growth, which is a bit annoying. Fingers crossed, maybe in the next couple of weeks. What I notice is that Kordes floribunda and tea hybrid roses grow taller in my garden in Zone B than what Kordes says. It would be interesting to hear what is the experience of someone growing these roses in Germany or a colder growing zone than mine. Are those roses staying more true to the estimated measurements given on the website? Please let me know what you notice. Thank you for watching today, and I hope you have a lovely weekend.